Gambling in downtown Hartford instead of East Windsor? A casino in Bridgeport? Straight ahead on Face the State, we will talk about the new plans with Gosselin and Russell Blair of the Hartford Courant. Plus, the race for mayor of Hartford is heating up as candidates take on Mayor Luke Bronin. We'll talk with Democrat Brandon McGee. Also, Connecticut is one of the most Catholic states in the country, and now the church is represented at the state capitol by a new yet familiar face. We'll talk with Chris Healy, former chairman of the state Republican Party. It's all straight ahead this Sunday, August 11th, 2019.
From Eyewitness News, Connecticut's most watched local political program, this is Face the State.
Good morning. It's 8:30 on this Sunday. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dennis House, and welcome to Face the State. The dog days of summer have brought us some howling over a proposal to put a casino, or casino-like gambling, in downtown Hartford at the XL Center. Sounds like a winner on the surface, but not everyone is on board. And with us today, two men who have done some in-depth reporting on it, Ken Gosselin and Russell Blair, both of the Hartford Courant. Gentlemen, good to see you here today.
Thank you.
Great to be here.
So Ken, walk us through this proposal about the XL Center, because when it first broke, and you wrote the story, a lot of people were like, wow, this is pretty interesting. How would it work?
Well, the idea is really being floated. It's a very early stage, idea here. A conceptual plan would be to bring some sort of gaming, casino maybe, sports betting into the XL Center, which of course there have been plans and concerns about where this venue is actually going. Right now we of course have the arena there, which is very important, but it needs a lot of renovation and a lot of money. And the thought partly may be that, bringing in another type operation might be able to help that, bring in a partner who would invest in the arena.
What was the reaction from the tribes? Because they're looking 6 miles down the road in East Windsor.
Yeah, well, they're not ruling out Hartford, of course, because part of the legislation that was proposed a couple weeks ago had something called an entertainment zone in Hartford, okay? And so it could be at the XL Center, it could be somewhere else. They say that, Hartford, yeah, we would look at Hartford, but they still want to do, of course, East Windsor.
And let's talk about the broader picture of gambling in our state. I'll shift to Russell for that, because right now people think, well, it's just Foxwoods and Mohegan and then this new one in East Windsor, but there's more being talked about.
Yeah, I think to go back to the beginning, this all started with the idea of MGM's casino in Springfield. The tribes and state lawmakers got together and said, what can we do to protect gambling dollars in Connecticut? And that was where the East Windsor casino proposal came from. A couple of years after that, we saw the Supreme Court rule that states could legalize sports betting. So that got thrown into the mix. Another thing that's been added is this idea for iKeno, which is if you've been to a restaurant or a bar, you've seen the game with sort of the ping pong balls. Every 3 minutes there's a random drawing. You fill out a slip, give it to the server, and you can play that way. But they're talking about doing that online. They're also talking about online casino games, so roulette, blackjack, poker, all those things. But you're sitting at your computer and you're betting real money, and you're doing it through the tribes or another operator here. So there's really maybe a half dozen different forms of expanded gambling. They were all included in this comprehensive bill that was released recently by state lawmakers, and I think people are sort of parsing through and seeing how that's all going to shake out.
If you look at East Windsor, let's say that MGM Springfield did not exist and the state decided they wanted to have a third casino. East Windsor probably would not be in the running. There'd be other locations that would be more strategic, correct?
You would think so. East Windsor certainly is not, a place where this is going to lead to a catalyst of development in the area. That's the argument that has been made about a Bridgeport casino, is that it could serve as a centerpiece to a larger development along the waterfront there that is close to the New York market, as a way to tap into those people who don't have a big casino to go to. But the East Windsor project, which came from a couple of different bids in the Hartford area, I think was always seen as kind of a defensive way to stop gamblers that maybe go to Mohegan or Foxwoods, or maybe they don't go there because they live in Hartford and it's too far, to stop them from going to Springfield and have them head to East Windsor and protect those jobs and the revenue. I mean, jobs is a huge thing here. There still are thousands and thousands of people employed at the two casinos, still hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue the state gets from them, even though we've seen gambling decline, it's still a major industry for the state.
And you talk about that side development, which of course could happen in downtown Hartford. If a casino was there, you would see other restaurants opening nearby, hotels, other attractions that you won't get in East Windsor. So it seems like an easy sell to some people.
Yeah, it is, and Hartford has been looked at for many years as a possibility. From back in the 90s, there were, when Steve Wynn was looking in Hartford, he looked at Hartford, and even with the East Windsor proposal, at one point there was some thought, well, okay, we'll have East Windsor, but then we'll also have little boutique areas, okay, gambling areas in nearby towns or cities. And Hartford was also mentioned. XL Center was a possibility then. So this isn't really a new thing. It has been talked about for a while.
And the XL Center obviously needs to be renovated by all accounts. Everybody's saying from Gino Oriema down to downtown merchants. So is there another way, if this casino, if the gambling doesn't happen, that Governor Lamont can get a private partnership to fix that?
Well, that's what he is focusing on now, and they are really, his Economic Development Commissioner, Mr. Lehman, they have been looking very closely at this with the Capital Region Development Authority. And there is some hope that when the bonding package is passed, there will be money for this fiscal year and next fiscal year, maybe around $20–30 million, to put in. Okay, so we'll do some repairs, and that maybe that will attract another private investor, maybe not a casino company, but maybe another private investor. And this has been talked about for a worry for 10 years now. Where is this facility going?
When those casinos opened in Uncasville and Mashantucket, people could not have imagined the amount of money that came into them over the last 20 years. But as you mentioned, it is going down a little bit. Is there a future forecast for what these casinos could possibly do now that we have Boston and Springfield?
Well, I know one thing that we've learned is the Springfield casino, I think, is already underperforming the projections that they made there. There were some new reports out this past week showing revenue at Mohegan Sun was down, and one thing I know Ken has followed is the casinos are sort of trying to evolve into more destinations. They're adding lots of dining, lots of shopping. They're moving more away from the gaming, but I think with what we're seeing in East Windsor, this is strictly how do we preserve the gaming dollars that we're getting here. And again, the state receives about $200 million roughly from the two tribes every year from slot machine revenue. So that's still a significant amount of money, and they want to do everything they can to protect that. They want to protect the thousands of jobs that are at stake here. But you're right, and maybe the way to move into sort of, finding new gambling dollars are things like sports betting, or things like an online lottery, or things like online casino games. Tucked in this bill, there was even a reference to esports, which is competitive video games that people place bets on. So I think they're looking at, it's not going to be the rows and rows of slot machines and table games anymore, but something like sports betting, or moving some of these things online or onto smartphones. Is that a way to continue to increase gambling dollars, or at least hold steady where they are?
Ken, there used to be a stigma about having a casino in your city. In fact, pro sports didn't want to have anything to do with it. Now Las Vegas is getting a football team. They have a hockey team. Detroit still gets the Super Bowl with casinos. How are the corporate giants in Hartford reacting to this possible proposal? These insurance companies and so forth, which tend to be conservative. Yeah,
well, they haven't really said very much about this yet. But I know in the past there has certainly been a big debate over that, and that is one of the reasons in the 90s why it really didn't go anywhere. There was a huge outcry, particularly from neighborhood groups, about worries about crime and all that was seen as going with a casino.
It's going to have to wait and see attitudes. It's going to be fascinating. Russell Blair, Ken Gosselin of the Hartford Courant, we thank you both for being with us here today. When we come back, we will ask a candidate for mayor about this casino proposal, Brandon McGee. We'll also talk with Chris Healy. He's the new voice for the Catholic Church in Connecticut, and we welcome you to watch past editions of Face the State right now on our app or on our YouTube channel. We'll be right back.